High cortisol burnout is one of the most common things I see in women in their 30s and 40s, and it is one of the most misdiagnosed. And this isn't because it's complicated, but most standard checkups are simply not designed to catch it. I've worked with so many women who have been told their labs look fine, and then they leave that appointment feeling defeated because they don't have the answers to the questions that they had. What's equally frustrating is that doctors will dismiss it, or they'll say maybe it's just stress, or maybe they just need to sleep more, or maybe it's just a part of aging and getting older. But I want you to know that that is not the full picture. And as an integrative health practitioner myself, I look at the whole context of what's happening in your body, not just a single number on a standard panel. The standard panels done at your annual checkups don't give you the full picture. They don't even give you a good amount of information to make any sort of decisions. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the difference between stress and burnout, why high cortisol burnout gets missed, what it actually looks like when you look at the data, and what you can do to start paying attention and changing things right now. So stress can contribute to burnout, but just being stressed and actually being in burnout is not the same thing. These are the characteristics of what a stressed person will experience. Number one, it is characterized by over-engagement. You're doing too much. There's too much on your plate. You have a lot of commitments. Typically, your emotions are more overreactive than they need to be, just like you're on the edge and you're about to be pushed over. Stress typically produces more urgency and hyperactivity. It's harder to sit still. It's harder to take a break and slow down. In fact, you don't even like doing that. And because you're under a lot of stress, you're lower energy. If this is a pattern that you're noticing, you'll feel a lower amount of energy day to day. Stress can contribute to anxiety disorders. And sometimes in the medical space, that is one of the first lines of defense that doctors will try to set you up with to just kind of keep the mind at bay and keep you functioning. The primary damage of stress is going to be physically to your body. That can look like issues with your skin, with hair loss, hormonal imbalances, and a life of chronic stress could kill you prematurely. On the other hand, burnout is when you're in stress states for so long that your body's not able to keep up with the demand of releasing stress hormones, and it looks like you're disengaged. So what would normally stress you out, you are just kind of checked out and going through the motions. You don't feel that fiery passion inside of you anymore, and you're almost on autopilot. Your emotions are also being blunted. You're not overly reacting or overreacting to anything. You just kind of feel like this flat affect and you're numb. In terms of how you feel more helpless and you feel more hopeless. Any sense of urgency that was there before is not there anymore. It's as if you don't care. You're not motivated, you don't have hope, and the things that you used to care about just don't matter to you anymore. This can lead to, rather than anxiety, a more sense of depression, hopelessness, detachment from life. The primary damage comes from the emotional state rather than physically to your body. And with that cycle of mindset, you might notice that you feel that life doesn't seem worth living anymore. So those are the differences between stress and burnout. Let's talk about where most people get it wrong, and that is how cortisol is actually being tested. When you go in to get your standard labs done, cortisol is not a part of that panel. You will typically get your complete metabolic panel and your CBC, the complete blood count, and your lipids. So that's going to look at things like your cholesterol. And those standard panels are done every year just as a checkup to see how things are going. They're not necessarily diagnostic, and they definitely don't dig deep enough to pick up on any patterns of what could be causing your health problems or symptoms. Cortisol is not a part of those standard laboratory tests every year, so you're going to have to request it specially. But even that is an inaccurate picture of what your cortisol is actually doing. Cortisol is a pattern. The thing about standard cortisol testing is that a single blood draw at your doctor's office gives you only one data point, and if you get your bloods drawn in the morning, it's the morning data point, and it tells you nothing about how your stress response is actually functioning throughout your day. Cortisol is one of those hormones released that is supposed to follow a rhythm. Now, cortisol is the main stress hormone, and it follows a rhythm of being high in the morning. And when I talk about stress, I don't mean any negative stress or pressure. It's more of the hormone that gets you up and going. When it's released in higher amounts, we can start to feel the negative effects of it, especially if it's prolonged. But cortisol itself is not a bad thing. Without cortisol, we wouldn't have motivation or urgency to do the things that we need to do. But in the morning, ideally, healthy cortisol rhythm is it's high in the morning to get you out of bed and get you started on your day. It starts to slowly drop throughout the day because when it's bedtime, your cortisol should be at the lowest and you should be able to get a calm night of deep and good sleep. When that rhythm is dysregulated, when it's up and down at different points of the day, or if it's low in the morning and high at night, you might have crashes of energy throughout the day. You might have issues going to sleep. You might have issues of getting up in the morning. And just testing it once on a standard blood panel is not going to give you that whole picture. It's just one data point at one time of day. The testing needs to be more thorough. What does that cortisol rhythm look like from the moment that you wake up until the evening? As a health detective, what I'm always looking for are patterns, not just singular numbers from single points of the day. And that's the biggest difference between functional medicine, alternative options, and conventional labs. Data is data, but you want to be looking for the right data at the right time through the right lens. Patterns are huge. If you notice a pattern, you can start to change the pattern. The women who experience burnout and stress more commonly are typically high-functioning, high-performing women. They're told that their symptoms are usually due to anxiety. Maybe they're in their 30s and 40s, and the symptoms are being attributed to perimenopause, or, oh, it's just life. Can't you just accept it? Maybe you're getting older. Those excuses are not enough, and I don't want you to accept them as enough either, because you shouldn't have to. There are solutions to your symptoms and your problems. The best way to test cortisol that I have found is called a 4-point saliva cortisol test. How this works is you'll spit in 4 different tubes at 4 different times of the day, and the cortisol released in your saliva is tested and measured to see what those levels are at the different types of the day. Ideally, we start high, we end low. And when you do the test that way, you send the tubes in a lab, and interestingly enough, my clients can just do this at home because the labs are shipped directly to their door. All you need to do is fill out a little bit of paperwork, read the instructions, take the test according to the instructions, and send the saliva tubes back into the lab to get what those numbers are. So how do you know if you have high cortisol? Or how do you know if you're in that burnout stage? And the signs of this are likely hiding in plain sight because they're things that you've already accepted as normal. Oh, I normally get this energy crash after lunchtime at about 2 p.m. And that's when I go back to the coffee maker and make another cup of coffee, or that's when I slam another Red Bull. And those are not normal symptoms. You're not supposed to have that energy crash in the middle of the day. There are mixed opinions, but some experts will argue that there are 3 stages from stress to burnout, and some will argue that there are upwards of 7. I'm more inclined to stick with the 7-stage model, and I'm going to break that down for you in this video. All right, stage number 1. So this is called the initial alarm stage. Your cortisol is going to be high. Your body is ramped up in response to the initial stress on the body. You might even feel extra energy because the cortisol is ramped up and getting your body ready to keep going. Stage 2 is called the ongoing alarm stage. You're going to have high cortisol as well, but your body's going to start showing signs that it can't keep up with the stress. Cortisol is going to stay elevated, but other hormones might start to drop at this stage. Stage 3 is called chronic alarm. You're going to have still high cortisol and your other important hormones. Some other important hormones might to drop even lower. The body is starting to show more and more signs of not being able to keep up with the stress. And this stage 3, is where you probably might want to start getting help because you're starting to notice that things are not functioning as they used to. You're getting those energy crashes and it's becoming a problem because you're falling asleep in your 2 o'clock meeting. You might have crazy anxiety. You might not be able to get good quality sleep. You're going to feel tired, but your brain doesn't shut off. Other symptoms look like you're getting sick all the time because your immune system is suppressed. Your body doesn't respond to exercise well, and you might start to gain weight. Stage 4, this is inching closer to burnout. This is called the initial resistance stage. Your cortisol is actually going to look normal on a test because this is the point where it starts to drop. If you are producing high cortisol for too long at such a high intense amount of stress, your body can't keep up with producing more and it starts to lower the production of it. So if you are in this stage and you get your cortisol tested and it looks normal, you could also be dismissed as well. It's important to also test other hormones along with the cortisol so that you get a bigger, more full picture of what's happening. Stage 5 is ongoing resistance. Cortisol starts to drop towards low. Your body doesn't even want to try to adapt to the chronic stress. You're exhausted in the morning, unable to get out of bed, and you just feel low energy and blah and almost like depressed throughout the day as well. Stage 6 is called the last stand. This is your body's last effort to try to keep up with the demand, but obviously it can't because the reserves are out. So you're going to have anxiety. You're going to be completely overwhelmed. You're going to not have motivation. You'll be irritable. You might have some strained relationships as a result of how you're functioning at this stage, along with all the other symptoms of weight gain, immunity problems, constantly being sick, and so on. Stage 7, the final stage, is called exhaustion. You're going to have low hormones across the board, low cortisol, and low other indicating hormones as well. This is where your stress axis in the body starts to really power down, and your body is not able to produce enough hormones to meet the demands of the stressful situation. This is where you feel like completely bottomed out, can't get out of bed, are sick all the time. You don't have libido, you have low ambition, low drive, nothing brings you joy in life anymore. You probably hate everything, hate the world, and hate yourself. And this is where true burnout lives. Everything is bottomed out, and you can see that on a test. Okay, so now that we know what the stages of burnout look like, maybe you can go back and listen through and try and identify which stage that you're at, but it's also helpful to get testing done to see where in the stages that you might fall and get follow-up testing to see if you're either falling further into burnout or trying to heal from burnout. Let's talk about what high cortisol starts to look like. We talked a little bit about the symptoms as I went through the different stages of burnout, but one of the functions of cortisol is to tell your body to store fat, especially around your midsection. Now, this is in conjunction with how much estrogen is being used and released in the body as well, but cortisol and estrogen play a role together to help the body store fat, especially around the midsection. That's your belly fat, that's your thighs, because that is your body's survival mechanism. If your body is stressed, it goes into this pattern of behavior and hormone release to keep you alive. The biggest priority of your hormones, of your brain, is to take action to keep you alive. So it starts to pack on the fat because the body senses that it's a stressful time. In evolutionary terms, there might have been a famine. So any energy that you're taking in, your body wants to keep it, to save it, and keep you alive for longer. And if you're at this point of high stress and you're suspecting that you're heading towards burnout, if you're not already there and you've noticed some weight gain, you've tried to go on the diets, but you either can't seem to control yourself, or no matter what you do, the weight's not coming off. It's not that you don't have any willpower, it's because of these protective mechanisms in the body. Another sign that we've talked about several times is your afternoon crash. That typically hits about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and in part that is related to your cortisol rhythm. Instead of slowly tapering down throughout the day, it starts to bottom out sooner, and you just feel that drop of energy, and you might feel like you have to take a nap. Another common pattern is feeling wired but tired. So essentially you feel tired. Maybe it's the end of the day and you're trying to wind down and go to sleep, but your brain and your thoughts just keep racing and you can't stop it. That's another symptom of cortisol dysregulation. You're tired, you want to sleep, but when it's time to sleep, your brain just doesn't shut off. Other symptoms look like getting sick more often, because higher cortisol suppresses your immune system, which is your body's defense anytime that you're getting sick. You might notice some mood swings. You might notice some brain fog. You might notice some cravings for sugar or salt or both. And all of that is related. Now, wherever you are, whether you experience certain symptoms or not, or the severity of how you experience those symptoms, Everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's on a different part of the spectrum. And remember, there are 7 stages of burnout. So you might fit somewhere within those 7 stages, and you might only be experiencing a couple of those symptoms that I mentioned. That's okay. We want to figure out where you are now so that we can take you out of the trek to burnout and go the opposite way. There's a trending term in the holistic natural health space, and that term is adrenal fatigue. And that's some people consider that a synonym of burnout. Some people find it extremely relatable. It is not the most biologically accurate way of describing things, but it has become a pop science term. The most medically recognized term for burnout is called HPA axis dysfunction. It's the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal. So parts of your brain communicate to your adrenal glands, which is the part of your body that releases cortisol. That communication pathway is dysfunctional or dysregulated. If you want to bring up how you feel to your doctor, you might want to use HPA axis dysregulation as a term. Personally, when I went through my burnout, I clung to the term adrenal fatigue because before I was educated and certified in all of this, I didn't know what I was experiencing, and that was the first term I came across that I felt like described me. But there are better terms out there that I want you to be aware of. And if you identify with the symptoms that I described and the concept of adrenal fatigue resonates with you, I want you to know that everything you're experiencing is valid, even if adrenal fatigue is not a medically recognized term. I want you to take your symptoms seriously and maybe in conversations with providers use the term HPA axis dysfunction, or even simply say, I want to get my cortisol levels tested. If any of this sounds familiar to you about your cortisol patterns, or if you feel like you're entering burnout or on the road to burnout, I want you to drop a comment and let me know, what stage do you think you're at? What's happening is when cortisol stays elevated for a long time, it doesn't stay in its own lane. It starts to pull resources from other hormone systems. Cortisol doesn't work in a vacuum. It is connected to different hormonal system. It's connected to your reproductive system. It's connected to your digestion. It's connected to your immune system. Simply put, your body makes hormones from the same raw materials. So when cortisol is in high demand, it essentially steals from other hormone production. That's one reason why high cortisol and burnout shows up along with something called low progesterone. And women struggle and suffer with that, especially if they're in their 30s and 40s when their cycle gets a little bit irregular. Their PMS symptoms are raging and they're constantly stressed and on edge. Cortisol also suppresses thyroid function. And your thyroid releases hormones that manage your metabolism, which is connected to your weight, your moods, hair and skin health, and general metabolism. So another set of labs to run when you get your blood work done are your thyroid markers. Typically, only 1 or 2 markers of your thyroid are tested, and that's TSH and T3, but you need to have a full thyroid panel done to get a deeper picture of what's going on. You cannot make a statement, a diagnosis, or a health decision based on 1 marker. You need to look at a bigger picture. So if you're experiencing high stress, high cortisol, but you're also experiencing other symptoms like feeling coldness all the time, or your metabolism starts to slow down, you might be losing hair, you might be losing the outer third of your eyebrow, we need to start looking at the piece that the thyroid plays with the chronic stress as well. And underneath all of your systems, commanding everything, is your nervous system. The nervous system has been a buzzword in the health space in the last 10 or so years, but it really does take control over everything. Your nervous system is tied to all of the systems, and when your body is in a chronic stress response and the nervous system is on high alert, it can't prioritize healing. We generally use the terms fight or flight when you're in high stress, and rest and digest is when you're in peaceful times. And when you're in high stress all the time, healing is not the number 1 priority. Instead of prioritizing healing, the nervous system will actually prioritize your survival. So it'll reduce hormone production, it'll reduce metabolism, it'll downregulate some things to keep you alive. And one of those things it downregulates is the metabolism, and you'll find it difficult to lose weight because your body wants you to survive. In times of high stress, in times of burnout, your body's not focused on your ideal health goals, of losing weight, growing nice healthy hair, ovulation, and so on and so forth. Your body just wants to keep you alive. I hear a lot of people say, oh, my body hates me. And your body doesn't hate you. Your body is actually preserving you in these times. You might feel like you're fighting it, but it's doing its best. It's doing what it's biologically wired to do to keep you alive. Now, if you're still with me, good. I know I've gotten into some nitty-gritty details of biological functions here. The next part is the real game changer, because you get to take what I say and take some action. This is what I wish every woman I work with would have heard before spending years being dismissed. You don't have to be dismissed. I want to be so clear here. I'm not anti-medicine. I'm not anti-doctor. Standard medicine is great for acute care. If you are having an acute situation, a heart attack, life-saving measures that need to be taken, that's what that's for. But that system is not designed to spend time with you, to investigate both deep and wide as to why your body is responding the way that it is. That's not what that's for. And I wish people understood that there was more than just that option. Yes, there are doctors. Yes, there are specialists. But even those professionals in those fields can't cover all of the bases. They only have their perspective and their purpose in your story. So if you really want to get good help, you might have to seek help in multiple different places. And I hope that that list of places is shorter rather than longer, because that means you'll get answers sooner rather than later. The big gap between standard lab work and what women need to feel safe and heal the stress pattern and heal the burnout starts with, in my opinion, proper cortisol testing. We need to look at the picture of the pattern throughout the day. It's a pattern throughout a period of time to see what's going on. You need someone to sit down with you, get that testing pattern, but also look at everything that's contributing. Full picture. What's going on in your life? How is your sleep? What's your emotional state like? What are the things that are on your plate that are stressing you out? What's contributing to your chronic stresses? Is your environment safe for you? Are you safe and comfortable where you live? Do you feel supported by the people around you? Are you fueling your body with enough of the right foods to fill the nutritional gaps to make you feel energetic and vibrant? That's another gap that we look at as integrative health practitioners. The lifestyle factors that play a role in our health and how our symptoms decide to manifest is huge. We take the time to really investigate and look deeper to help people with their problems, to help people rebalance their bodies. When it comes to that term HPA axis dysfunction, there are lab markers to run that can help you dig deeper. Now, the big hormone that we mentioned today is cortisol, but I also want to mention some others that we'll get to very shortly. But testing is just one piece of the puzzle, one piece of data that can help. And the big difference between the standard ranges that most medical providers operate off of are based on the standard population. If the standard population is not optimally well and optimally healthy, then what they accept as a standard is not optimal. So there's the standard ranges, and then the other side are functional ranges or optimal ranges. So this is where we want to be in order to be fully vibrant and fully healthy, which is, in my opinion, what we deserve to feel. We don't want to be comfortable with just being okay. Personally, I want to have the most vibrant health for as long as I possibly can. We don't want to be struggling and surviving. We want to be thriving. If you want more of a complete picture, there are tools that can give you that. Let's get into what sort of tests I recommend for cortisol and high stress situations. Number one will be the 4-point salivary cortisol test that I mentioned earlier. It measures your cortisol at 4 different times throughout the day: morning, afternoon, evening, and right before bed. Another test that I recommend is the Dutch test. It is a dried urine sample that adds another piece of the puzzle, and it goes further, showing you how your body is metabolizing hormones over time. These are tests typically used by integrative and functional practitioners, and they give a bigger picture of what's going on in the body. These tests are amazing because they show patterns. They don't just show snapshots. And they're being looked at through the lens of functional and optimal ranges. So we're not looking for just okay standards. We're looking for the healthiest, the best, the brightest, the most vibrant, because that's what we deserve as humans. Another test that I'll recommend to be run in conjunction with cortisol is DHEA. It is typically a precursor to hormones, so the presence of it or the absence of it will let you know generally what is able to be converted to be made to other hormones, or if you don't have enough, then you're going to be struggle to make other types of hormones at all. Those are the bare minimum tests I would recommend, but there are other markers that you can talk to your provider about looking at as well. Remember, hormones don't work in isolation. They're all connected to each other. So what does this actually look like in practice? What can you start doing right now, even before you get any testing done? If you suspect that you're in one of these stressful situations, you're trying to determine whether it's stress or if you're in an actual burnout state, here's what you can start doing right now. Chances are you're already overwhelmed, and we don't want to overwhelm your body and your nervous system more because that'll defeat the entire purpose. What we want to focus on first is your morning cortisol rhythm. So when you wake up in the morning, one of the first things you need to do within the first 20 to 30 minutes of waking up is to step outside for a few minutes and turn your face towards the sun. Sunlight being absorbed by the eyes is actually a good way to regulate your morning cortisol. When sunlight hits the eyes, it's a biological response. The body starts to respond to daylight and waking hours and productivity, and that's one of the things that can shift when you start to add this routine. So this might mean, depending on your schedule, adjusting your morning routine to be consistent, waking up at close to the same time every single day and going through that sunlight on the face and on the eyeballs routine. This will help your cortisol to actually start to peak at the right time. We want to elevate it in the morning. And one of the best ways to do that is to expose yourself to some sunlight. Do not look directly at the sun, but towards the sun. It is such a simple tool. It is free. All you need to do is wake up when the sun is just coming up as well and look towards it. Other things that are in your control that you could start to change are making sure that your meals are regular. Our bodies run on an internal clock, expecting nourishment at certain times, expecting waking and sleeping to happen at certain times. And when our day-to-day is not in a nice routine, our body is on alert. It's stressed out. It's not sure when the next meal is coming. It's not sure when rest is coming. So those stress hormones are going to be higher in that case. So we want to make sure that our meals are coming in at consistent times. Make sure that your breakfast, lunch, dinner, even snacks are being consumed at around the same time every day. We don't want to be skipping meals, and we don't want a pattern of skipping meals. Another thing that you can control is your exercise. Make sure you get some exercise every day, but don't push yourself too hard, and make sure that you're fueled before or after your workout. Also, recovery is key. You don't want to work out super hard every day. You want a good amount of time to recover in between each session. Other things that you have control over when it comes to regulating your stress is not checking your phone first thing in the morning and last thing at night. Put that thing away. Checking social media, checking notifications and updates can set off stress hormones even when you don't think it's a big deal. It's a big deal because the inputs that are being taken in by your eyes, by your ears, by your emotional state is all being translated into hormonal releases as well. It's information coming into your body, and your body is producing a response. So if you're all constantly taking in visual stimulation, auditory stimulation, you're scrolling and you're seeing something sad on the news or emotional, that's affecting you as well. And you can reduce those stressors on yourself by reducing time on your phone, time on social media, making sure that it's not the first thing you look at and the last thing you look at every single day. And on that note, talking about sleep, sleep is not just rest. It's an opportunity for your body to repair, to recover, and to reset your daily hormones. There's daily cycles of hormones. There's monthly cycles of hormones for women. We have to give our bodies the ability to be able to work with those rhythms and those systems as well. Your body does the majority of its hormone regulation and repair while you're sleeping. So we don't want to short ourselves of that sleep. And we want to keep our sleep cycles consistent also. All of these things can help to regulate your cortisol and your stress response. And don't think about it as doing more. It's about setting up your routine to help your body signal appropriately. That is what we're trying to do here. If you do suspect that you are in that burnout state, I encourage you to get help as soon as possible. Get those hormones tested. And the path to burnout recovery, if you truly are in burnout, the path to recovery can take several years to get your body back to where it was. So if you're seeing this video and you want to make sure you catch it before you get to burnout, please do that. Now that you understand what high cortisol and stress looks like versus what burnout actually looks like and why most people miss it, I want to hear from you. I want you to comment below and tell me, what did it take for you to start getting help for your stress and how you're feeling? Your story is important. And honestly, when you name whatever you're experiencing, that's the first step in your body starting to feel seen. I'll read your comments, I'll respond to them. And I've been there. I've been in bottomed out burnout. And let me tell you, before I got answers to what was really going on with me, I did not give up searching. And I don't want you to give up either. Because if you feel so off, I want you to keep searching until you find that one provider or the several providers that are going to give you the most help, and they're going to get you on the right track. They're going to figure out where your hormone levels are and how to get you help. Your body is sending all these signals because it's trying to communicate with you. And now that you know a little bit what's going on, you have a little bit more language to understand it, you can start taking steps to get some help. I'll see you in the next video.